Do you want to lead a profitable advertising strategy rather than micromanage it? Do you want to take the guesswork out of PPC or expand your advertising in other countries and languages? Then you're in the right place. At Databrill, our team of technical marketers and data scientists have poured years of experience into building the most powerful international automation tools for Amazon-sponsored ads. Our tools can handle large accounts with thousands of ad campaigns and millions of keywords across many languages. The total result is increased sales and reduced ACOS. And in contrast to most agencies, our pricing is based on an inexpensive flat rate. So get in touch today. Visit sellersessions.com/agency for more details.
Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions. This week we bring in Nick and Fernando. Hello guys, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Thanks for having us.
Good. I've been looking forward to this show because today we're basically going to look at the growing pains of an Amazon seller. These guys have gone from they've gone from 0 to 1 million to 10 million. And what interests me the most is the growing pains in between. So before we get going, guys, do you want to just give a quick intro on yourselves?
Sure. Yeah, I can start. My name is Nick. I met Fernando back in college. Both he and I kind of had a dream of working at startups for a long time. So we took the plunge, finally did it after working our corporate jobs, working a couple years at startups. And we started about 4 years ago. And we kind of started with e-commerce, wasn't sure what to do. And we kind of slowly transitioned, learned about FBA. And then from the get-go, once we did FBA, we made more in the first month than we had in the past 6 months of trying other e-commerce solutions. So we just scaled that, scaled the crap out of that. And, 4 years later, we're kind of where we are now. So this past year, we hit the 8-figure mark. We'll talk more about it, but we've had a lot of growing pains in between.
Sounds good.
Fernando, you want to go?
Yeah, my name is Fernando. So I've been starting little businesses ever since I was a kid, always really loved entrepreneurship. And it was just kind of quick ways to make a buck. And then, right out of college, I worked in finance for a little bit. And then, took the plunge, like Nick mentioned, into kind of tech. And then really was able to kind of catapult my career in terms of really understanding the foundations of how to build a business and how to build a business quickly. And then, we just hit our 3-year mark, selling on Amazon. It's been a wild ride, but it's been amazing. I mean, in terms of just options that it's given us, it's been incredible.
Sounds good. So what's kind of interesting, you seem to have taken a similar path to me. I started in the music industry, then I went into tech, and then I discovered Amazon FBA.
So Fernando and I, we both got involved in the Los Angeles tech scene initially. It's called Silicon Beach, and so we started there with our first startup. Funny story, we actually got laid off because that company raised $8 million in funding and hired 70 people within the span of a year and a half, and then all of a sudden they weren't making any revenue, so they laid off all the sales and marketing team. So we had that experience, and then that kind of platformed us into other startups. I ended up staying and working at an outsourcing tech company in Los Angeles, and Fernando actually moved up to Silicon Valley. It was a Y Combinator, right, Fern? Yeah.
So I got recruited into a really early stage company. I was employee number 2, and we're 2 people in the U.S. So it was an amazing experience to really get kind of paid to learn how to start a company.
Sounds good. Cool. So you've had the foundation, you've had the baptism of fire. I call startups. It's the only place that you can go is where you literally eat broken glass, your mouth bleeds, you swallow the blood, and you say, thank you, I enjoy it. So there's a baptism of fire aspect there. You've been laid off, you've dealt with silly numbers. Let's be honest that but it's a real eye-opener, where you get these crazy rounds that are raising. You got party rounds, as we like to call them in the UK.
I like that.
Too many investors involved, and everyone's got a business plan with a hockey stick high to the right, but they've got no users or no money. But you hear that all the time. So Amazon's a different beast. So let's talk about Amazon. How did you kind of jump from all of that and then started selling on Amazon?
Yeah. So, when we first started, into our e-commerce game, a bunch of our friends were in e-commerce, so it was kind of the natural transition. And we decided that we wanted to build a standalone site, and it was kind of a site for the person that would love Tim Ferriss. We're both huge fans, and so we were kind of looking at kind of the intersection of technology and health, and productivity, and any product that would support that. And so we were trying to work with all these different partners, and like a few of them were really supportive in what we were trying to do. But like I would say 75% of them were just a pain in the ass to work with. They were just like, they didn't get it, weren't really excited about it, and like, expected us to be much, much bigger. And then, so Nick and I were talking, we were both like really frustrated with like the business. It just wasn't growing like as fast as we wanted. And we were, we brought up the idea of creating products because we knew that if we created products, it would, we could control our destiny in terms of where they were sold. But then, we were kind of going back to the idea of selling on eBay, which was like our backup plan. But Nick brought up a really like smart point, which was, why would we sell on eBay if we bought everything on Amazon, like personally as customers? And then, do you want to?
Yeah. And so we actually didn't even know what FBA was. And so we started researching Amazon, and we were like, whoa, there's this crazy program called FBA. And we heard about, the amazing selling machine or whatever. So we just like started researching all this stuff, and we realized, wow, there's just so much potential here. And so immediately, I think it was around December, we were like, okay, let's just go ahead and give this a shot. Let's just dedicate our all. This seems way easier than what we were doing before, which is like sourcing vendors, doing our own shopping cart and everything. All we have to do is source products, which we had already kind of done before, and just launch them. And so it seemed simple enough. We did it. And then, I think our first products launched in like March.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned, we did like more in that first month than our past 6 months, just trying to do our own shopping cart. So to us, it was like a no brainer. Like after spending, 6 months not making any money and purely bootstrapped, we realized that profit was our first priority. And we realized that Amazon was like the ultimate platform, at least at that time, to get us to that goal.
You're in year 3 now, aren't you?
Yeah, going on 4. Year 3 going on 4. It's kind of hard to remember.
Okay, so we can go into the sexy side of the story. You're a successful businessman now. But the bit I want to get into, which is key for the audience, is that it all looks good from the outside. You go from 0 to 1 million, then that pain point of going from 1 million to 10 million, but it's been a rocky ride. But where did it start to hit hard? Where did the layoffs come, and what were the problems that you incurred?
So I can start and you kind of interject if you think that I'm missing anything. But, in our first year, we experienced like so much success. Like we did about $2.5 million in revenue in our first year, and we're like, holy shit, like this is amazing. Yeah. And so we started scaling, we started going after things. And, as we mentioned before, we have tech background. So it's all about top line revenue. And so we realized, okay, to get more top line revenue, we just keep adding products. And that's what we did. We ended up growing our product portfolio. And then suddenly we noticed that our margins were shrinking. And our books, we weren't getting them in time. We'd get them maybe a month and a half later after the month closed. And so we'd always get like this report card that we dreaded. And we'd see that, our margins were just shrinking over time. And finally, it just got to a point where we were like, holy shit, this is our second year, by the way. Our top line is great. We're on track to like basically triple our revenue from last year. But why is our margin so poor? Like, I don't get it. And we kept making excuses for, we just hired more staff. It's because, we found a new freight forwarder, or all these different expenses that we were incurring. But at some point it hit us, and we did the numbers, and we realized we only have 3 or 4 months left before we just cut, we just actually don't have a business left anymore.
Right. So your run rate, like your burn rate was higher, but your run rate, you had like 4 months basically left on the business before you run out of cash. So let's get into that bit, because that's a very interesting, because this is typical startup lifestyle stories that people live from check to check. So did you raise any cash, or did you need to get rounds of financing in, or did you do all this yourself?
So we had raised the financing. We've raised like several rounds. So we've done SBA loans, like kind of like the more traditional route with like with a normal bank, and then we've also done promissory notes that have helped us like really early on to scale as well.
Sorry, say that. Can you want to repeat for the audience?
Sorry. Promissory notes to scale as
Which
well.
are, so the audience understand.
Oh yeah, sorry. So you can write like a promissory note, which is kind of like a customizable way of structuring debt. So the way that we have it is interest only for 2 years. So let's say you raise like $100,000. If we're paying, let's say 10%, then we'll pay the $10,000 over the year monthly. But we won't have to pay that $100,000 because it's a 2-year loan till the end of the 2 years. So at the end of the 24 months. And then we also have an ability in the agreement to extend to a third year for an additional 2% interest. It's a really favorable for inventory businesses because the fees are pretty small, and the people that actually loan us the money like know us really well. They're like former bosses or former colleagues, and so at the end of the day, they know that we're like responsible and that we're going to pay it back. So I think that's like a real benefit to this type of structure.
Okay, so that's great. So talk to me about the remaining 4 months. What was going through your mind? How did you turn it around? What happened with the layoffs, etc.?
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of knew that we were in trouble, but like Nick mentioned, it was kind of like this report card that we would get, and we're just like, okay, we have no idea. I think one of the big challenges is that and we're still solving right now, is really expensing like our freight up front. And then so there were certain months where we were like super profitable, and that was like usually because our freight was low that month. And then the next month, we would kind of have like almost like 1.5 months of freight, and then it looks like negative. And then so that was one of the things that was kind of scary as we were receiving that like kind of report card, if you will. But so we're up really late. We're just like working in the office. It's probably like 9 o'clock. And then we're going through like the profitability of all of our products over time. So like it was like January, February, March. And then we just saw that one of our best performing SKUs, which was doing around like 50K in profit a month, had to like just quickly over those like 60 days drop down to around, I think it was like 15K. And then so at the same time, we had been hiring people, and we were also adding a lot of really profitable SKUs. So it was hard to see like the profitability because we were losing like the most profitable SKU really quickly, but also adding these like fantastic SKUs that like kind of hid that. So we didn't see it till the end of the 60 days. And then that's when we were like, okay, wow, we have all these people, and like this product, like we just have to count it out. So like, what do we need to do? Like, who are the essential hires? Like, what are the essential functions that we need to like really turn this around? And instead of going after everything at the same time, is it really focusing the company on like, the 80-20, and then just making sure that those like all those launches and like products did well.
Yeah. We basically did like a full audit, and we did analysis on a per SKU basis, which is something that we didn't do as in detail before, but we basically evaluated something like where we call a cash efficiency, just how much money we're getting back on return, kind of like an ROI on a per SKU basis, and just looking and breaking out our SKUs into like our core SKUs and our useless SKUs that were eating up all our cash.
So getting into the layoffs, did you do them in rounds? Look, this is brutal. I've had to do it myself, and I've rewritten my staff CVs and tapped up my black book and got them all placed in jobs when I shut down a startup about 8 years ago. So I know how brutal it can be. What happened there? Like, what were you going through? Is that that you've got to lay off these great people, but you've got that difficult thing. How did that all come about?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. I mean, I think for both of us, it was a really, really difficult time. I mean, we did it pretty much all in one shot. I mean, I think the thing that we realized was that like specifically for FBA, like businesses with like Amazon's fees and everything, your margins are a lot like slimmer than a lot of other companies out there. And so having like a huge payroll, especially in LA, just didn't make sense. But the things that we did realize was like we really needed to get better at the analytics like of our business and like kind of the reporting. And so what we decided to do was keep like a lot of the employees that had more of that analytical background. And then I think what we did was every single person had one major task to focus on for the next 90 days. And then everyone was 110% focused on those specific tasks and nothing else. Like there was like everything else was like, we'll save it like on a to-do list for later, but like we're only focusing on this for these 90 days.
Yeah, and just to give you a little more context, like if you're asking me the specifics of how that happened, just for context, we also had just given offers like literally a week before to 2 people. And so, this, like we realized like literally that Wednesday that holy shit, we need to like start cutting people and we need to make these quick decisions. So that Monday, we decided, we kind of evaluated, like Fernando said, who the, what the priority teams were and what the non-priority teams were. And then we brought all the ones that we were going to let go into a room and just kind of gave them the rundown, gave them an explanation of like where we were with the company. And we were super honest, and we were really, sorry. And it was like a really sad experience for all of us. But fortunately, they were just, I think we communicated well. And then we also went in a room with the other people that we were going to keep and made sure to let them know what was going to happen. And wanted to make sure that we had their buy-in if they were down to stay.
Exactly. You have to deal with these very, very swift. One of the mistakes that not mistakes, but because my heart was in the right place, but I call it the death march. And through my experience with it is that you let people go in stages because you're fighting so hard to keep them. But the runway runs out, and then you let one batch, then another batch, and then everyone goes. Do you know what I mean? At the end. So there is that when you can see the writing on the wall, but you guys dealt with it swiftly. And it was good that you got buy-in from the guys that were staying because they need stability. So they need to know, there is a batch of people over here because you don't want that hanging over your head. So by doing it in one fell swoop, which sounds cruel or crass, but it's definitely the right thing to do because these people they've got livelihoods. They need to know where they're going next. They need to know where they stand because you don't want that hanging over your head for 6 months and then finally getting the chop. Tough experience. Where did the turnaround occur from here? So you went through that 90-day period. What was the results of that?
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of profitability, I think that by losing the headcount and saving like on our OpEx, I think that brought us much, much closer to break even, which was great. And then we had a huge backlog of products that really carried us into the kind of the middle and the end of the year. But I think, one of the big things was like, my task specifically was like clearing out inventory. So like anything that was like slow moving or dead inventory, we just didn't see like kind of that over 100 or 150% like cash efficiency or ROI. We just cleared it out. Everyone was so gung-ho. I think that was like one of the really cool things is like, one of the guys that stayed on and he was like, you know what, like, and this is like a really difficult like situation, but I'm like really excited. I know that like I wanted to join like a really early stage startup to like learn, and like I can't think of like a better experience to do that. And so I think that was like one of the cool parts of
I'd definitely say to anyone. I mean, it takes 10 years off your life, but it's the best experience that you're going to learn. I've never worked in corporate, so I can't speak of, but I know what startups are like. And that's definitely made a big impact on my life, the way I look at setting up business, starting my thought process and everything else. And when you've been in that system, when you've seen all the high hockey sticks and all the, the fanfare around it, there is a high failure rate as well. And so it does teach you a lot about what kind of business do you want to run? Do you want to run off your own cash? Do you want shareholders in your business? Do you want investors in your business? And those experiences will shape the future of your business. So I always say to anyone, if you ever get a chance, always go and try and work in a startup. It'll be a baptism of fire. If you feel like, your hair's set on fire on a daily basis, it'll be hard work. But then when you look back on the experience, everything else would be a doddle.
Totally. I think that was one of the really fundamental things that we took away from our experiences before, having worked at venture-backed companies and, having myself worked at a bootstrap company, we realized that, that was the lifestyle that we want to pursue. We wanted to have full control of our business and not have to, report to people who would kind of plug into our business. So yeah, that definitely made a huge impact in terms of our decision around that.
Cool. So a couple of other things is like one of the problems that people have is obviously the cash flow, injection of cash and getting products. But in the beginning, that didn't seem to be a problem with you. You managed to get to the bloat stage, yeah? So you had to tuck out your costs. But how were you able to quickly stack all these SKUs to get into that position? Because obviously you grew rapidly. It's not everyone else can. Was it that it was all under one brand and you're in a certain category? And
yeah, I mean, I would say like our first few products were decent products. They were, doing like all right, maybe like 10, 20 grand in revenue a month with like decent margins. And then I think we, in maybe month 4, month 5, we ended up hitting like a category that, just like propelled our company. I mean, for every dollar invested, we probably got like $5 back. And these were doing like, $100K a month in like revenue. So I think the cash that we needed was to really keep those in stock. But it ended like, because we were able to take out like all these different loans from like, family and friends and everything, that helped us like finance the company in the beginning. And I think like everyone that was like, kind of competing with us was like having challenges like keeping them in stock. And because I think we were a little bit more aggressive like in terms of the debt, and then being able to to expand that category really well, I think that was a huge, huge advantage for us. And like, ended up being like kind of where we weren't as disciplined, I think, because we had been so lucky from like the beginning.
Are you still stacking SKUs, or are you happy with what you've got at the moment and you're like redeveloping those products?
No, we're still stacking SKUs. I mean, I think our strategy has changed significantly. Yeah. I think what we realized from that lesson was that we were basically kind of dropping SKUs here and there. We found a big category. We just were satisfied with our products, and then we expanded into another category immediately. And I think that was really our downfall, because with Amazon, the landscape is constantly changing, but what doesn't change is how competitive it becomes. And so we realized that we had to go as deep as possible into our categories. Once we found a winner, our strategy was then to make sure that we cannibalize ourselves. Because if we don't do it, then someone else is going to do it for us. And so I think that was our biggest learning lesson. We realized that we needed to lengthen the product life cycle of our products when we found a winner. And when we did, we needed to make sure we held on to it by launching as many as possible and minimizing the amount of manufacturers we're working with, but maximizing our economies of scale.
Yeah. So basically trying to operate as little account of factories as possible. So if you can find a factory, you will want to hope to get 10, 15, 20 products if you can out of it, because that's going to help with not only negotiating your product costs down over a period of time by doing bulk, but logistically it works well. Now, you were pointing out about the shipping thing, the freight kit coming up.
I mean, I definitely don't think that we were optimizing our shipments at that time. I think now we're much, much better. We have people that are, in charge of inventory planning. We have people that are in charge of logistics. But at the time, that was another thing that we got into trouble with, is that the person that was managing supply chain was also handling inventory planning as part of his responsibilities. And so you're kind of splitting time, and it's a lot easier and more interesting to be sourcing new products than to be forecasting inventory. So I think we calculated that we spent about $270,000 that year in terms of air shipments. And like in terms of like Q4 storage, we must have spent like around $80,000 that month just within Amazon. And I mean, there was just like a lot of like mistakes I think that we made. Overall, like just in terms of like supply chain, like as an entity, I guess.
So are you now using prep centers, keeping outside of Amazon, sending in on velocity?
Yeah, we have one 3PL on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, depending on what we're doing, and all of our all shipments coming from China will go directly to our West Coast one, and then we have one specific person that's in charge of looking at the daily sales of all of our products, and then drips them into FBA.
Cool. And in terms of marketing, obviously the landscape's always changing. Do you guys do a lot of launches, build lists, and do you operate that way, or are you just focusing on Amazon PPC?
Yeah, I think what we've realized is, Amazon gives a lot of favorability to newer products. We found that there's like a 14-day window. I think there's this theory that's going around, and we've really found that anecdotally to be true. And so, we get really aggressive with PPC out the gate, and we always make sure, I think a lot of it comes down to product selection, right? Like if you merchandise your product effectively, if you make sure you add value to the start, everything becomes a lot easier, from marketing all the way to, whatever it is that you're doing. And so that's what we try to do. We want to make sure that we're choosing the right product, one that's not as competitive, but also another one where we feel like we can dominate on value. And so, we're either cannibalizing ourselves or we're cannibalizing someone else. So, and then we obviously do like our major keyword research, and then we target aggressively with our bids. We work with Sean Smith, who's awesome, and we have a specific strategy around how we launch it. And oftentimes, if you choose the right product, you don't even need to do more than just PPC.
Cool. It's interesting you say that, is that you're using PPC aggressively as PPC's gone up. Sean's very good, obviously. He's one of our main commentators on PPC on the show. So it's interesting you're saying that you go aggressive. So you're not doing Facebook ads, giveaways, landing pages, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would say that's mostly what we do for sure.
I think that's the most effective thing. We are building like messenger lists and like email lists right now with like a Facebook ads consultant. But I think right now we're still like in the testing phase. But I don't think it's like really like driven the results as like PPC.
Where are you guys today? So let's talk about, before we wrap, let's talk about the whole going from 0 to 1 million, then 1 million to 10 million, because that's a different landscape. But not everyone is aware of what it's like to go from 1 million to 10 million. And they're two different ballparks. Do you want to go into both for us?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like the two things, at least for me, like off the top of my head, is like one is like systems. And then the second one is people. And so in terms of like systems, I mean, now we're working with like 30 some manufacturers. We have probably just over 200 SKUs. We've got, Amazon US, Canada, Europe. So it's just a lot to manage. And so you really need to build like process and making sure that your people follow those process to really be able to like manage so many things at the same time. And then like the people, I think in the beginning, we were just kind of hiring people, trying to fill roles, especially like overseas, just like, okay, well, they're good. Like, this is fine. Like we need to make this hire because we're doing it too late. But now I think we're a lot more proactive about like our hiring. We have like an actual HR recruiting person that just joined the team, which has been phenomenal in terms of one, saving us time, but then also just putting structure and process like around such an important function, because they determine like the quality of the people that are on your team. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say, just bringing in people specifically with experience. If you're trying to like really improve your supply chain, you can kind of take your chance on somebody that is like smart and like young and, maybe is like cheaper, or you can kind of bring in somebody that's got like, 8 years of experience, loves supply chain, and has taken a company from 10 to 50 million. And like, that I think is kind of where our hiring strategy has changed, and I think that's been super, super helpful in helping us get to the 10 million mark.
We're entrepreneurs, and some of us like don't want to get to the stage of being in the boardroom, putting a suit on, etc. So then you let others step up to that part of the company, and then your manager level starts to change within a business because it's operating in a different sphere, isn't it?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I like the way someone brought it up to me once. It was like, if you're like thinking about like war, like, the Marines are kind of like the startup people, the really early stage people that kind of come in, kick down doors, try to figure things out. It's like really stressful, a lot of uncertainty. And then you kind of have like the Army that kind of comes in and puts a little bit more structure in place. And they're kind of like, still like, still startup mode. And then you kind of have like the military police that kind of puts in rules and like policy and like all that kind of stuff. And that's like, a later stage. But like the person like that's a Marine is definitely not going to be like the best person to be like like an MP at the end of the day. Yeah.
So final question here: as you guys owners of Flippers, are you planning on selling the business at some point, or are you just going to carrying on growing it?
That's something that we constantly talk about. It's definitely something that we've considered. But I think ultimately, like we have a target, like we're trying to hit, $2 million in EBITDA. I think that's like a target for us. I think when we get to that point, we'll have a lot more options. But, I think, if we do sell, we want to get that higher multiple. So, there's a lot of options ahead of us. I think we have a target set in sight. And I think if we build something that, we might not want to sell yet, but still is just like very incredibly well built, we'll have a lot of options for us on the table.
Exactly. Sounds good. All right, guys, thanks for coming in. Right. Before we go, is there anything you want to let the people know, how they can reach you, etc., what you're up to?
Yeah. So, we just joined, or we just became partners in this awesome online community called Seller Tradecraft. Yeah, we'd love for you guys to reach out to us on there, and then be active in the community. And we're actually coming out with a course later on this month. So if you're looking to learn how to sell on Amazon, and you want to learn from us, and then also our business partner Anthony Bouitran, we'd love to have you guys be a part of the community, and we'd love to help you guys out.
Yeah, cool. And we do free webinars as well. So like we're always doing Q&As on Facebook Live. So, we'd love for you to come join us.
Cool. And what's the details to the Facebook, and what's the best email to reach you guys on?
You can reach us at nick@sellertradecraft.com and then Fernando@sellertradecraft.com, and you can go to our website, sellertradecraft.com.
Great. Thanks for coming today, guys. Guys, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. We'll see you again soon. Take care.